In this video, we look at the Albanian National Action Plan for Roma Inclusion. We gathered data on education and employment from 2015 and compared them with the latest available data in 2018 and 2019. We suggest moving beyond the us and them approach with programs for Roma only, as statistical achievements alone do not say much about the quality of the education or the job training provided. This video is a summary of my paper on Sage Open. The link to the paper is down in the description. Therefore, let's start with a brief introduction of Romani people history in the last century. From the horrors of the Nazi extermination camps to broad discrimination across Europe, Romani settlements were outlawed in several Eastern European countries, with extreme measures such as shooting horses, removing wheels from caravans, and prohibiting gatherings widespread after Second World War. In the Soviet countries, settlements or resettlements was enforced by tearing down the old ghettos and governmental social workers often proposing Romani women to be sterilized in exchange for monetary bonuses. In contrast with this anti-Romani attitude experienced elsewhere in Europe, the socialist regime of Enver Hoxha followed the homogeneous assimilation doctrine. Indeed, Hoxha did not recognize the existence of a national minority, resulting in no official persecution against Romani people, who enjoyed citizen status with benefits like employment and some degree of social security. However, in 1990, the advent of democratic institutions caused a sharp fall in education and employment among Romani people. Currently, school dropout is considered a significant issue in Romani integration. The latest figure on primary enrollment from 2017 shows that enrollment among Romani kids aged 3 to 5 years old is only 33% in Albania. A low worrying rate if we consider that preschool dropout or complete lack of any preschool enrollment bring Romani children to develop linguistic deficits when they try to enter primary school. The leading cause for preschool misenrollment is early employment in begging or trafficking of children or lack of caregivers in child care centers. Far worse, a third of Romani children aged 7 to 15 were outside the school system in 2015. The high dropout rate, together with irregular attendance or the failure to create a non-biased and accepting environment in school, brought to a situation where Roma kids are often forced to move in school for Roma. However, as argued by Daniel Assini, Roma families have acknowledged the importance of education and the current tendency is to move away from separate schools for Roma. The presence of a free meal, indeed, is a determinant factor for the enrollment in preschool, with 63% of Romani children attending a kindergarten without a meal provision. Romani girls are particularly disadvantaged as they have to take on the caring role for younger siblings, thereby interrupting their schooling earlier than Romani boys. Early marriage, with girls on average marriage between 13 to 15, is often the primary cause for school dropout among girls. The number of students enrolled in compulsory education went up to 13,000 in 2018, from a baseline of 4,400 in 2015. Attending university is rare among Roma people, with scholarship or other subsidies as the main discriminant in university enrollment. Nevertheless, the new action plan did not allocate any funding for high school tuition waiver, with consequent fall in the number of Romani students enrolling for a diploma and consequent fall in university enrollment. According to Assini, the government decided to focus on compulsory education first. Lack of education and skills make Romani people hard to employ, resulting in over 50% of working-age Romani unemployed in 2018. With an average wage of 1,300 lek, around 11 euros per month, underemployment can be a lifelong handicap for Romani families. Although the National Action Plan 2016-2020 has set the goal of formal employment of Romani people at 80% in 2020. However, it was estimated that only 44% of Romani working age were employed in 2018. Often, an employer I prefer to keep a position vacant than hiring a Romani, while there is no evidence that preservation of Romani culture pushes young Romani people towards isolation or unwillingness to work. And in contrast to common thinking, receiving social benefit or some social assistance does not affect Romani labor force participation. Indeed, according to an assessment from the European Asylum Support Office in 2016, 11% of the asylum applications in Germany were from Romani people owning a Western Balkan passport. Accordingly, it seems that Romani people are more likely to emigrate than other ethnic groups in the Balkan, likely due to significant wage discrimination occurring when formal employment is found, as a non-Romani employee earns on average 45% more than a Romani employee. In line with this hidden discrimination affecting Romani people, a survey of 1,000 people in Albania, conducted in 2018 by the Balkan Barometer, found that 91% of Albanians show support for facilitating access to education and employment to Albanians with disability, while only 75% show support for the same policy applied to Romani people. Where Romani people were asked if they experienced discrimination while seeking employment, 34% of Romani said yes, and the thinking goes, because I'm Romani, nobody wants to hire me. In line with this hidden discrimination hypothesis, 70% of Albanians show support for working with Romani, going to school with Romani kids, and buying from a Romani. However, only 22% show support for interethnic marriage. In regards to labor force participation, Romani female labor force participation stands at 29% against 36% of non-Romani females. As most Romani girls get married while still in secondary school, chances to earn a diploma are very slim, thereby getting stuck in precarious or unskilled employment like selling second-hand clothes or recycling garbage. Moreover, Romani people are often excluded from social assistance or unemployment benefit due to administrative issues, and especially the new qualification criteria for the Dima Ekonomike, Albania's main social assistance program, had the effect of diminishing the number of Romani households earning a social assistance. Having a registered address or provide a valid identity card or work for a minimum of 1 year are some of the requirements to be qualified for unemployment benefits, condition often hard to fulfill for Romani people. The lack of an ID card makes Romani people not hireable as they cannot be registered for social assistance, while 5.7% Romani children aged 0 to 18 were not registered in 2011, making them forgotten children. Growing school enrollment has been noticeable only within compulsory education, in contrast with upper secondary education, which did not experience any increase in enrollment when compared to the 2015 baseline, while university enrollment fell, while the number of Romani continuing education beyond compulsory school remained much lower than other non-Romani groups. By applying the same quantitative perspective, improvements in employment are undeniable, with 850 Romani employed through the Regional Employment Office and unemployment rate down from 75% to 56% in 2018. However, as unemployment went down, it is unclear which share of the Romani people was employed due to subsidies and which share was due to genuine employment opportunities. The number of trainees has been mainly dependent on government funding, with 944 Romani trained in 2017 and only 157 in 2018, a clear sign that the tight dependency between Romani employment and state subsidies. Although increasing employment rate is one of the action plan targets, structural issues like chronic lack of ID cards remains unsolved. If no ID cards is issued, the person does not exist, thus harder to hire, while no funding shall be allocated to enrolled potential students or trained potential workers. The National Action Plan seems successful at first sight by increasing employment and enrollment rate in schools. However, the action plan seems tangled by the 3 I problems: ideology, ignorance, and inertia, are frequent issues among programs for the weaker layers of society. Ideology coming from European institutions catalyzed government attention into minority issues. However, ignorance of the Romani people's real issues kept the law only on paper with no actual implementation, as governmental efforts cannot wipe out years of anti-gypsy mentality. Therefore, at the halfway mark, the action plan seems led by inertia, with quantity over quality, and no question asked in regard to what kind of education is being taught or what kind of employment is being provided, with funding focused on economic and statistical side of the problem, with no apparent care for the human side. Finally, the 2016-2020 action plan provides solutions for Romani problems by implementing programs for Roma only, forgetting that programs for the poor are poor programs, thereby targeting Romani alone in their segregated neighborhoods with no efforts in bringing Romani and non-Romani together could further worsen segregation. As Daniele Sini argued, the Albanian population has grown more sensible towards Roma integration by showing willingness for mutual engagement, and Maniola Vesi claimed that long-standing cultural dogmas among Romani communities are falling. Social media are providing a platform where young people from all ethnic groups can meet beyond ethnic barriers. Increasing the number of Romani students will have little effect and little long-term solutions if the students attend segregated school or do jobs for Roma only.